Have you ever heard of the concept of in media res? It's an extremely lazy story convention that hack writers often abuse to create instant drama without having to do any of the difficult work of character development. It typically consists of opening the narrative by having the main character already dealing with a dangerous situation without explanation. Remember Indiana Jones running away from the natives who were trying to kill him for whatever it was he did to tick them off, back in Raiders of the Lost Ark? Yeah, it's just like that. It's extremely prevalent in the television and film industries, probably because of the aforementioned Indiana Jones scene. Remember folks, Hollywood is almost gleefully creatively sterile, and anything that Steven Spielberg does is going to get ripped off. Wait, that Indiana Jones scene wasn't in media res? Are you sure about that? Ah, screw it. I think dodging all of these fireballs is screwing with my memory a little. What's that? Fireballs, you ask? Why, yes, I am being attacked by a bunch of angry mages. I'm glad you noticed. And that's because I'm currently stuck in a world of magic and wonder, and I've apparently pissed off a lot of powerful people who'd very much like to see me die. Isn't that a hoot? What? It isn't? Yeah, I didn't think it was either. Sorry, I know it's more interesting to have a stoic badass in these kinds of situations who never loses his cool and always knows what to do, but I'm pretty much a high-strung coward, and I am just freaking out right now. I tend to yammer in life and death situations. All my friends are constantly telling me to shut up, and I always feel bad about not being able to oblige them. We can't all be like Idris Elba, you know? Fan out and bring him down! I want his head! And I want that ring! Shouted an unfamiliar voice. I couldn't see what he looked like because I was currently hiding behind a large, conveniently placed boulder that was doing a damn fine job of absorbing their shots. I didn't know this boulder before today, but I think I've fallen in love with it. I wanted to live in its shade symbiotically, like a remora on a whale's belly. Wouldn't that be nice? Hands up, you're dead, human! Shouted the scary blue guy who'd circled around me. Oh, nice job, Boulder. What did I ever see in you anyway? This relationship is over. I said, hands up. Or do you really want to die that badly? The blue guy growled. He was holding a nasty-looking scepter in his hand that was glowing red at his tip. An ember rod, I'd heard them called. They stored etheric energy and released it in the form of a fiery blast that could incinerate a fella on contact. He had me dead to rights. The only reason I could think of as to why he hadn't killed me yet was because he was afraid of damaging my forge ring. What a dope. Shield! I yelled, and imagined a big tower shield forming at my side, tall enough to protect the full length of my body. It appeared instantly, placed between me and the guy before he could react. After he fired his rod, my new shield didn't even feel warm after blocking his strike. Isn't heat resistance the best? Spikes! I yelled next, imagining a bunch of sharp, pointy metal bits piled up at my feet. After they appeared, I next said, combine! The spikes rose into the air and then sealed themselves to the front of my tower shield. After that was finished, I ran directly towards my attacker and slammed it into him as hard as I could, clocking him right on the side of the head. "Ugh!" he grunted, before dropping to the ground, dead with a series of perfectly circular holes all throughout his face and skull. Sorry, bro, I muttered. My shield vibrated again as it took more hits from his companions. Pete, how many am I dealing with here, man? I asked. Detecting 4 remaining assailants, Sir Matthew, said the cheerful voice of my forge ring's artificial intelligence. Just 4 to go? Okay, I could deal with that. But first I needed to catch my breath. Shield times 4, combine, I said, imagining 4 thick walls surrounding me with a roof to prevent aerial attacks. After that was done, I breathed out a sigh of relief. Unless these guys were part mole, I was now perfectly safe. Damn, I just wanted a drink. Why are these guys coming after me so hard? I groaned to myself. Well, there is a considerable bounty currently placed on us, said Peter. It would appear that Count Mayhew is still upset about the loss of his pet Cerberus. He tried to feed me to it. What was I supposed to do? Stand still and let it swallow me whole? I asked in exasperation. It did swallow you, sir. Exactly my point. Perhaps it was the method with which you disposed of it? Using a chainsaw to cut your way free did seem a tad excessive, Pete said, making a clucking sound as he did, as though he had a tongue to cluck with. Recriminations are as welcome as hemorrhoids, Pete, I said. Scanner, ×4, combine. The 4 scanners I imagined attached themselves to each of the shield walls protecting me, giving me complete surveillance capability around my tiny square house. Nice. Okay, Pete, paint each of our targets for me. 4 human-shaped red blips appeared on either side of me. They were slowly stalking towards me, trying to surround me on all sides with their rods pointed out, ready to fire. Man, I thought we were the good guys, Pete. This isn't how you saw me on signing up for this gig. I haven't met a single person on this planet who hasn't tried to take my head off. I assure you, our order was welcome in all corners of the known multiverse in times past. Unfortunately, due to our diminished numbers, we haven't been able to pay each world the attention it deserves. Clearly, our presence here has been forgotten. When was the last time this place had its own Forge Knight? I asked him. I'm afraid it's been something around 4,000 years? Of course I'm learning this just now. Of course it would have been better to know this before getting tossed into this crazy backwater. Of course I'm stuck fumbling around with one-word commands while these idiots are trying to roast me like a Christmas goose. Being in your magical nightly order thus far has been balls, Peter. Who do I talk to about resigning? I'm sorry, Sir Matthew, but resignation is out of the question. You are legally committed to 1 10-year term of service. However, I can take note of any complaints you may have. Oh, buddy, you are going to be taking a lot of goddamn notes, I can promise your ass, I said vehemently. My left shield began vibrating violently, after taking a hard hit from one of the bandits. Damn, I yelled. Machine gun? Denied. What? Damn it! I apologize for your frustration, Sir Matthew, but only Knight binaries and above are permitted to use hyphenated words for item construction. As a Knight Inceptor, you are only permitted to use single words and the combine command. Noun phrases are forbidden. Promote me. I am afraid that is not possible at this time. Pete, I hate you. Oh, don't be that way. I like you. The attacks continued while I tried to think of a way out of this predicament. I would have loved to have been able to go on the offensive, but only being able to use single words limited my options. I always had to think defensively, which was frustrating as hell. Wielding a machine gun could have ended this fiasco in seconds. Forge rings were amazing tools, but they were only as useful as the resources they had to work with, and the imagination of the people who wore them. They couldn't make tools out of nothing. There had to be available resources to forge. The rings were also limited by the word commands that could be used for item creation. Like Pete said, Knight Inceptors like me could only use a single word at a time. The next rank, Knight Binary, was where the real power was. They could use 2-word combinations like automated turret and missile drones. To use the vernacular of a jaded Gen Xer, binaries were badass mofos. Knight Triniums were able to use 3-word combinations that were basically planet busters. Not a lot of those guys around. The final stage, Knight Omnia, had only been reached by a single Forge Knight into the entire history of the Order. But no one knew very much about her, except that no one was allowed to talk about her. She had apparently done a very, very bad thing. The thing about us, Knight Inceptors, is that we were technically supposed to be apprentices. I wasn't supposed to be out in the field by myself before I had at least 3 years of solid training, and the rank of binary. But I guess the Order had a real personnel shortage they were dealing with, and were just throwing bodies at the problem until they could get their house sorted. Knight binaries were too important to hold the hands of newbies like me. Their stupid solution was to send Inceptors to low-risk worlds to cut our teeth. Worlds with a risk assessment of 3 and below. The planet I was on was supposed to be a 2.5 in the danger scale. A danger scale which apparently had last been assessed over 4,000 years ago. Its current ranking, according to Pete, was a solid 8. God bless bureaucracy. Screw it, I muttered. Landmines, ×20. Blanket the area around each one of them. Give me some earplugs while you're at it. Oh, that seems excessive. May I suggest lowering the intensity of your response? Pete asked me. No, Pete, you may not, I firmly replied. Pete did as I ordered, and after that it was just a waiting game. But the jerks wouldn't budge. I knew they couldn't have detected the mines. Forge rings created things in utter silence, and per my visualization, the mines were buried around the baddies. Some dust had risen, but they wouldn't know what that meant. I think they were just being cautious. Or maybe they were posing dramatically. Who knew? "You're not going to get away!" shouted another blue guy. He was apparently the leader of these bushwhackers. His three buddies were elves from the looks of them. This world, Trevenium, was not a fun place to be a human being. Apparently we were a big deal in this world, way back in the past, but after some terrible fantasy world type shenanigans featuring, what else, a dark lord, we'd become a despised minority that was often enslaved and mistreated by the other intelligent races. My job was to police this world and try to establish equal treatment for humanity. The local powers that be didn't appreciate that very much. They especially didn't like that I was a human wearing a forge ring. Apparently being on equal footing with them offended their delicate sensibilities. The pricks. "Give it up, you mongrel! Surrender your ring, and we'll grant you a swift death. Won't that be nice? Or, if you'd prefer, I could lock you in a sty and breed you with the rest of my swine. You'd feel perfectly at ease, covered in mud and midden, wouldn't you, human?" The elves chuckled heartily at that. My patience was at its end. "Pete, am I allowed to use a detonation command with those mines?" I asked him. "One moment. Verifying. Yes, Sir Matthew. Knight Inceptors are permitted to do so." "Thank you, Pete. Detonate." "Detonating." I was glad I remembered to ask for those earplugs. I was also glad that earplugs wasn't hyphenated. When the dust settled, there were 3 piles of elf slurry, and a very confused-looking blue fellow without any legs. I strode over to him, with my traveller's cloak billowing out behind me thanks to the force of wind. He stared at me, at first in confusion, then in anger. He was the type who hated to lose, I guess. How sad for him. "Human filth! You won't get away with this!" he huffed. I looked around in confusion. First left, then right, then all around. "Huh?" I asked him. "Who are you talking to? I'm sorry, pal, I'm the human filth that is getting away with this. You must have confused me for someone else. It's understandable. I do have one of those faces." "Check!" he hissed between bloody teeth. I could only guess that wasn't a very nice word. More like check your mouth," I replied. "Pistol." The weight of a gun settled into my hand. "We'll hunt you wherever you go. You won't escape. You won't escape," he claimed. "Not going to beg for your life?" I asked him. "Who would ever beg a human for anything? Your kind are a disease that must be expunged." "Well, okay then. Good talk," I said, as I carefully aimed at his forehead. "I will be avenged," he vowed. "I'll take your word on it, pard." Bang!
"Oh, my. Couldn't you have spared him, Sir Matthew? He was completely helpless," asked Pete fretfully.
Man, who knew a tiny supercomputer could be such a softie? "Isn't that the best time to actually kill someone, Pete?" I retorted, as I ransacked the remains of their supplies, hoping to find something useful. What if he came after us later? We can't afford to leave survivors behind. If we let too many of those build up, they'll pool their knowledge and figure out how to get us.
"I suppose that's true, but I do regret being forced to engage in such ruthless methodology."
"Oh, come on, Pete. It's literally us against the world," I said in exasperation. "And until the world learns to play nicely with us, we're not playing nicely with them." I soon found a flask of something that had been blown clear of the detonation site. Eagerly, I uncorked it and took a deep swig. Oh, mama, I didn't know what this stuff was. I only knew I wanted more of it. I swallowed another mouthful, and I slipped the rest in a pouch in my cloak. "All right," I said cheerfully. "Today's looking to be a better day than I thought."
"How wonderful. I do like it when you're in a good mood, sir."
"What are you talking about, buddy? I'm always in a good mood." I pulled my hood over my head and set off down the dusty road. I didn't like this world, and this world sure didn't like me, but so far I seem to be doing okay. Maybe my experiences had left me a little shaken up and a little bruised, but it could always be worse, couldn't it? It could always be worse. It was about 20 minutes later when I suddenly heard a terrifying roar that pierced the air. I turned to my left and saw a massive thing the size of a building explode out from beneath the earth so violently that the ground itself shook from the force its thrashing generated. The creature looked part lizard, part scorpion, and all nasty, and it was now racing straight towards me like a dog after a slow squirrel. Yep, it could always be worse. "Pete?"
Tank!